political science? Is politics a science? Can you ever make a science out of politics? Have you ever wondered whether it is an oxymoron, that is to say, a contradiction in terms, to speak of something called political science? How can there be a course called political science? This seems to be a problem. Part of the problem is the definition of science. The original meaning of science from the French is simply knowledge. But today, most people think of science as precise and factual, supported by experiments and data. Since large areas of politics are not quantifiable, many people doubt whether it can ever be a science. Politics is the study of how and why leaders make the decisions that they do. Many decisions are made in secret, even in democracies. We don't know exactly how decisions are made in Malacanang, or in the White House in Washington, the Élysée Palace in Paris, or the Kremlin in Moscow. When a member of Congress votes on an issue, can we be certain why he or she voted that way? Did he vote so that he could articulate the desires of his constituents? Did he vote for the good of the nation? Or did he vote because of the campaign contributions of interest groups? When we study politics, we realize that there are precedents for every type of political activity. The precedents enable us to make general statements, which we call theories. In this way, the study of politics accumulates knowledge, and knowledge is the original meaning of science. Is politics a science? What is your answer? The answer is up to you. Political science is not necessarily training to become a politician. Political science is training us to become dispassionate observers and analysts of politics, whereas the practice of politics often requires fast, popular, synchronized opinions. Political science can contribute to good government, mainly by warning those in office that all is not well. Accordingly, what I would like to do in the Senate Internship Program is to help you discover how politics really works in our country, and not how it is supposed to work. How it is supposed to work, you learn in your own colleges when you take Political Science 101. But the direct determination of all government policy, we cannot hold a meeting of 75 million Filipinos and ask for a majority vote. That's why we are no longer enrolled. Democracy for changing the governmental decisions by choosing among contenders for political office. So from this definition, we see the public, but we protect the rights of the, again, the answer, you can support the difference by examining what are the main characteristics of totalitarianism. There are 6 of these identifying characteristics of totalitarianism. Number 1, an all-encompassing ideology. Iisa lang ang paniwala ninyong lahat. Number 2, a single party. Maaaring in a totalitarian form of government, merong elections, but only one party is running. Number 3, organized terror. I must say that this is sometimes an adjective applied to me by my enemies, but it is not true. Number 4, monopoly of communications. Number 5, monopoly of weapons. Number 6, a controlled economy. Now, what is the difference between totalitarianism on the one hand and authoritarianism on the other hand? Authoritarianism is a system of government in which power is exercised by a small group with minimum popular input. The group may be a monarchy or may be a one-party system, which is typical of the developing nations of Asia. However, typically, it is the army that brings authoritarian rule in the wake of a military coup. Kaya kung magiging totoo man, itong mga pinapropagandize ng mga trapo o traditional politicians na magkakaroon tayo ng military coup d'etat, what will follow will not be a democracy, it will be authoritarianism. We have defined democracy as a political system that provides opportunities for changing public officials and parties through competitive voting, along with tolerance for minorities and divergent viewpoints. But who actually governs in a democracy? Sino talaga ang tunay na makapangyarihan sa isang demokrasya? Are the wishes and desires of the majority reflected in the decisions of elected officials? Do you think that is happening in our country today? Ang ginagawa ba ng ating mga nahalal na mga opisyales sa Senado at sa House of Representatives, yun din ang gusto ng mga taong bumoto para sa kanila o ang gusto ng karamihan o ng madla? Yun kaya ang larawan ng ating demokrasya ngayon? Totoo kaya iyon? Who actually governs in a democracy? Are the wishes and desires of the majority reflected in the decisions of elected officials? In our country, the Philippines, do the Filipino people govern, or do we have actually a government by the few? There are two theories of democracy that answer these questions. These theories are 1. Elitism, and 2. Pluralism. An elite is a small group of people who rule in the sense of directly initiating decisions about who gets what, when, and how. Under the theory of elitism, the Philippines is governed by a few elite, meaning a relatively closed, upper-class elite that responds to public pressure only when it is pressured or threatened. This group holds a power monopoly in the Philippines because it controls essential resources, including wealth, education, executive and legal experience, and so-called connections, meaning connections with political, military, business, and educational leaders. Membership in the ruling elite depends on socio-economic status, not on elections or expertise. Kaya, totoo kaya ito? Elitist kaya ang Pilipinas? Meron nga rin tayong halalan na sinasabi o elections, pero hindi naman sinusunod ang kagustuhan ng tao kung hindi inutusan sila o minamanipula sila ng mga mamayayaman at makapangyarihan. The elitist system. By contrast, under the theory of pluralism, the Philippines is seen as governed not by a single elite, but by a number or plurality of specialized competing groups. Membership in these groups varies with the times and with the issues. For example, what are interest groups in a democracy? Labor unions, capitalists, big business, the clergy. They have their own interests and their own agendas to push, etc. So, ano ang Pilipinas? Elitist ba tayo, governed by a few, the rich and the powerful? Or are we pluralistic, governed by those who possess power, who changes from time to time? Maybe labor unions, maybe cost-oriented groups, maybe overseas contract workers. Ano sa tingin ninyo? Are we elitists or pluralists?
Elitists.
Neither elitists nor pluralists accept the traditional image of the Philippines as a populist democracy governed by the common people. Both recognize that policy decisions are made by a small number of people who tend to be wealthier, better educated, and better connected than the average Filipino. However, elitists and pluralists differ sharply over the question of elite solidarity and the meaning of public participation in elections and interest groups. Elitists hold that those at the top work together and that elections and interest groups are largely symbolic. Pluralists contend that those in power are highly competitive and that elections and interest groups give the common people access to the system. Unitary and presidential. These are the two main characteristics of our form of government. We have a unitary form of government and we have a presidential form of government. The Philippines has a unitary system as opposed to, what is the opposite of unitary? Federal. The Philippines has a unitary system and not a federal system. A unitary system occurs its component areas, little or no autonomy. Most governance radiates from the capital state. That's why sometimes we use the expression Imperial Manila. Dahil ang mga taga-Metro Manila, dahil sa unitary ang ating sistema, ang pinanggagalingan ng lahat ng kapangyarihan at lahat ng pera galing sa kaban o sa National Treasury. Federal systems are composed of units that have considerable political lives of their own. The United States of America is federal. The Philippines is unitary. Sa Pilipinas, lahat nanggagaling sa Metro Manila. Sa Amerika, ang mga various states of the United States